On the podcast today, I speak to Andre and his journey from out of shape to the Boston Marathon. Stick around. Hey, thanks for listening and welcome to the YEG MS podcast. On this one, I talked to Andre, and Andre isn't a person who suffers from MS, but he has a pretty inspirational story nonetheless. As you'll hear, Andre went from being fairly sedentary and out of shape to running a marathon. Sorry, not a marathon, the marathon. He ended up running the Boston Marathon, and he is about to embark, I believe, on his third here in a couple of weeks. So, really glad he took the time to talk to me, and happy to have him. As for things in my world, the training for the really long run is going okay. I've got about a month and a half to go. I really got to pick it up here in the next month and a half. Really dial it down, really dial in my diet, and really start ramping up the kilometers. But I'm optimistic. My times are coming down when I run something like a 5K, and overall I feel pretty good. But I really got to dial it in on diet and kilometers over the next month and a half. But it's kind of that nerve wracking part where the end is in sight. But I just want to make sure I'm ready. Some really great news as far as the run goes. Since the last time I did a podcast just over a month ago, Adidas has come on board as a sponsor, so that's fantastic. They donated shoes, apparel, and they're donating some jerseys for the team runners on the day of. So they've been absolutely fantastic, and just want to thank them for supporting the run and supporting me. So that's great. And what else is going on? So I think this is a good episode to talk about goal setting with my talk with Andre that you'll hear in a minute or two. I don't know how it is for other people who live with MS, and I know for me, between fatigue and depression and different symptoms and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes I find it very easy to set a goal. I sometimes find it very difficult to stick with it. And I don't know if that's something that other MS wires experience, or if it's just me, or what have you. But I just sometimes when I set a goal, I'm good for a week, or I'm good for 2 weeks, maybe a month. And then I slowly fall back, and I've been noticing that with my training for the really long run, and just overall and in general. My goal between now and the really long run on May 14th, from right now until then, is to get up and do my training runs early in the morning, starting tomorrow morning. Which, conceptually, I suppose it sounds simple enough. You set an alarm and you go for a run. But there's so much more to it. You've got to make sure that the night before you had a proper meal that'll give you energy for running the next morning. And then you got to make sure you get to bed on time, because if you go to bed too late, you will not get enough sleep in where you'll have enough energy to wake up in a timely fashion and get your ass out there and start doing something. And it's not just running. I suppose you could apply that to your professional life, your personal life, just in general. And it's something I sure struggle with, and it's daily. It's trying to stay focused and just remember what my goals are. So I don't know if people out there have problems with that. I know that I do, and if you've got any suggestions or tips for me, I'd sure love to hear them, because I need to get better at doing that. I need to get better at sticking to it, I guess. And I mean, that might sound odd for a guy that'll train to run 80 kilometers in a day, but I fight with it every day. So this is going to be a shorter podcast than normal. I'll confess, I just don't have, with all the different things that are going up, leading up to getting the run done and stuff, I just don't have the time to dedicate to doing the podcast as regularly as I'd like. But one thing I do want to talk about, and I don't know if everyone else has seen this meme, and I'll try and find a link to it to put in the blog post that goes along with this. I think it was last week or maybe the week before. It was one of the things that kind of shot through my Facebook feed, and it was a video of a between 8 to 10-year-old boy who has cerebral palsy, and he had just finished running a triathlon. And, well, not finished, it just shows him coming into the finish line. And I sent that video to a number of people, and I think the caption I put in is, if you don't tear up watching this, you're not human. I mean, there's something wrong. Because he comes into the finish area, just before the finish line with a walker, and then as he's probably, 20 meters from the finish line, he leaves his walker and starts walking on his own steam. And about halfway from where he left his walker to where he gets to the finish line, he falls. And he falls pretty hard. He didn't really get his hands up to brace him. And one of the volunteers at the finish line starts walking out to help him up, because he's like, geez, I got to help this kid up. And the little guy just waves him off. He doesn't want it. He wants to finish on his own steam. And to me, it was such a beautiful image and such a powerful image. And, something I'll carry with me and use as motivation. It's interesting. I got interviewed today by the local global TV as part of a larger story about charity donations and how it's been going with the economic downturn. And and I have noticed this issue. I mean, donations are definitely coming in slower than they did last year. But I mean, the bulk of the donations did come in with in the last month and a bit. So I think it'll pick up a little bit. I mean, the chances are we're not going to get as much as we did last year. But as I pointed out in the interview on Global, I haven't actually watched it, so I don't know if they actually aired this part of it. But I did say, awareness is part of it too, and the awareness is great, just as good. But one of the things I was mentioning to the reporter, and again, excuse me, I don't know if they aired this portion of what I said, but I was just saying, to me, it's kind of, I don't look like a traditional runner. I'm almost 40 years old. I'm 220 pounds. I definitely don't have the gazelle-like body that you would expect from somebody who runs ultra marathons. But I'm okay with myself and who I am and what I do, and it's. And I mentioned to the reporter that when I talk to people about what I do, I always get a look like, yeah, right. People don't say it, but you can see it in their eyes. You can see it in their body language. But for me, it's not about getting the magazine body, and it's not about the time and how fast I finish. For me, it's about the journey, and it's about getting there. It's about generating awareness, and hopefully showing people and challenging people's notions about what is not only possible for people with MS, but just people who are what's possible in general. I had a friend of mine a couple weeks ago say to me, well, I'd come running with you, but I don't run. I can't run. It's just, I'm not wired that way. And that's putting limitations on yourself. So I don't care if you're tall or short or fat or skinny or whatever. You can do whatever you want. And I really, goes back to that video and watching that young guy with a pretty severe condition, a lot more severe than any that I have, across the finish line. So with that in mind, here's my conversation with Andre, and he's got a great story to tell, so definitely take a listen. West Edmonton Mall of all places with Andre, and Andre doesn't have MS, so he's my second ever guest that doesn't have MS. But the reason why I wanted to talk to Andre is he's got a really inspiring story. So for any of you out there that listen to me babble on about my run or thinking about exercising, and I just think he has a really motivating story and something to share. So I'm going to turn it over to Andre and let him introduce himself, and then I'll ask him some questions.
All right, thanks, Sean. Yes, my name's Andre. I'm also a runner and love to do it, nothing but. I do have a little bit of a story, I guess, as well in terms of getting into running, and I'm sure we're going to delve into that.
So, Andre, really what I wanted to talk to you about and what I wanted you to share is I know we met as a result of my running, and just really quickly how I met Andre was I tweeted at him. I tweeted at the Sport Check West Edmonton Mall account, and he responded with regards to my run, because I have a hobby of badgering people to try and help me out with my run. So anyway, we ended up meeting, talking, and then what I discovered is Andre's got a really interesting story. And as it turns out, Andre has run 2 Boston Marathons now?
2 Boston.
And you're going to run a 3rd one this year. But only a short time ago, and I'll let Andre fill you guys in on the details, but Andre was rotund. Is it a fair way to put it? So why don't you just kind of start there and kind of give the backstory of how, you go from being really badly out of shape and, the size you told me you were, which I still can't believe, and running a Boston Marathon.
Yeah, I wasn't always in shape. Yes, I'm running my 3rd Boston Marathon this April, but it's been a long road to getting to there. Used to weigh upwards of 256 pounds. It was a result of living a sedentary lifestyle in university. It's sports in high school, they went away because now it's time to focus on studying. And just, you don't notice it. It just catches you by surprise. I thought I was decently in shape at that time even. I guess it was because of my sports background in high school. I played hockey, played soccer, and I thought I was pretty good at it. And then just, doing a couple fun activities with friends, running around, playing soccer, a couple of pickup games in university, and still thinking, okay, I'm okay, I must be fine. But then realizing as time went by, wow, I don't know if this is the right lifestyle I should be living. I'm really noticing that I'm feeling heavier, feeling tired, and things aren't necessarily going my way in terms of healthy, active lifestyle. And especially after stepping on the scale, realizing I'm at 256 pounds, that's where I thought, no, it's time for a change, lifestyle change. This isn't for me, and it's not heading the right direction. So I decided to properly monitor what I eat. That was step number 1, because I think a lot of people, the way they get as big as they do is that they don't necessarily take into consideration what they're putting into their body, their net calorie intake. And if it's too high, like what you're supposed to take in, you're going to gain weight. And if you're not moving, you're going to gain weight more than likely. So that was the case for me especially. So decided to educate myself, find out that a proper portion of, say, the easy university meal is a plate of spaghetti. Decided to look into exactly how much I'm supposed to take in and portioned it properly. Decided, hey, I need to move, let's go. And I guess the explorer in me, I used to love hiking and stuff like that, so decided to, let's put on the rollerblades and just go for a long way and explore Ottawa, where I was at the time. And started falling in love with just, seeing how far I can go. And noticing that, working up a sweat, breathing hard, and it was a nice lighter activity, so it wasn't a hard, shock to the system. It was pretty light. You can glide for a little bit if you're out of breath, which is kind of nice, and pick up where you left off, start skating after that. And then as the time went by, I just started, losing the weight. I guess it's a law of thermodynamics when it comes to that, is that if you're burning more than what you take in, you're going to lose a little bit of weight. And it used to start off, I remember, at like 2 pounds the first week, 1.5 pounds the second week, and just consistently a pound and pound. And after about 3 or 4 years of that, because this wasn't too long, this was in 2010, 2009-ish. I don't remember the exact date, but yeah, I was pretty big. And then upwards all the way till now, I'm now to 150, 145, depending on how close we are to a race, I guess. decided to take up running, which is now my end-all be-all passion, by getting tired of lugging the skates to work one day, because that's how I commuted back and forth from work. I'd either take the bus there, skate home, to combine the commute with the workout, because it's always about finding time to work out, which is, there's always time, I guess, is the point of that. And decided to run home, and I remember just the first run being dog tired, not having to stop every 500 meters or so to at least walk or catch my breath again. And this is at the point where I was about 180 pounds. And, decided to, wanted to keep pushing myself because it's a challenge. Challenges shouldn't scare you off. It should be scary in a sense. You should be out of breath, and you should be suffering, so to speak, to a degree. But that's part of the challenge, to see if you can do it. There's always obstacles in the way. And I want to overcome it. So get home from work and decided the next day I want to beat that time. Let's go home. Let's get there faster, and started getting faster and faster from there, because I always tried to beat my times. Fewer breaks along the way as well, and that's the story of how I started running. Then registered. Had a friend talk about a race, 5 Peaks at the time, where Tourlager. I think this was in 2010. And or 2000, wow, I forget the dates, but you can edit the dates out if anything. Registered for a race and actually did not too bad. I ended up in the top 20 for the 5 Peaks race, and that crossing the finish line the first time doing it, and seeing the atmosphere, all the people around supporting one another during the race, really lets you know that you're part of a community and you'll want to be a part of it even more. Which is another reason why I love to run, is the community aspect of it. Especially crossing the finish line as a personal challenge, that was it for me, and I was hooked. Going on from there, started doing more races, and just started even from there getting faster and faster. Later in that season of the first 5 Peaks, ended up being in some top 3s, which was a lot of fun. Then the next year for 5 Peaks, consistently placing in the top 3. Registered for, I was thinking about doing a full marathon. I think it was 2012, but then backed down a little bit. Marathons are big and scary after all. It's 42.2. And decided to do the half marathon. And I set a conservative goal of, 145, but in my mind I was thinking, okay, 130 would be awesome. Then ran that race and surprised myself, ended up 128, I think, or 129 for that first half marathon. And I was so surprised. I was like, why didn't I do the marathon? That would have been a lot of fun. So next year, guaranteed, because this was my first real half marathon, decided to register for the full marathon here in Edmonton. And of course, training. And I train by myself, run by myself a lot of the times too. So it's a lot of lonely-esque, but that's where you see a lot of runners out there, where you can give that happy little wave. And that's a lot of motivation for me, since I am out there, say, running 30K for a long run now. If I see another runner, if I get a wave, that lifts the spirits quite a bit. Moving on closer to the Edmonton Marathon, more towards April, that's where in 2013 the bombings happened in Boston. And that's where it really motivated me to qualify for Boston Marathon at my first marathon, because I didn't want anything to interfere with our running community. I want our running community to stay strong and to show my face that we're not afraid. Was a big part of that. Then ran that marathon here in Edmonton and came up with a time of 2:58.58, which puts me at qualifying time by 6 minutes for Boston, which meant it's pretty much a guarantee. If you qualify by 3 minutes or more, you're almost for sure in. And let me tell you, the first Boston Marathon, 2014, that I ran, that's a race I'll never forget, because it was the year after the bombing. So a lot of people came out to support the runners. A lot more runners registered for that one. I think it was upwards of 39,000 runners, or 37, 39. Don't quote me exactly on it. And that's the first race that I ran where I didn't feel alone. Edmonton, yes, great race. It's an out and back, but there are some times where I'm by myself and I just have to stay mentally strong. In Boston, you don't have to worry about anything. You have crowds the whole way, 42.2 kilometers along the route. You also have runners everywhere, because where you're seated, all the runners can run just as fast as you or faster. So you're surrounded by runners at all times. So if you want somebody to keep pace on, you have somebody right next to you at all times to help you out. So it's a real motivator, and it shows how strong the running community can be, how we come together, and what we can do when we get behind a cause. Yeah, that was my first Boston, my first marathon, first Boston, and now I've been running consistently since, putting upwards of 100K a week in my training plans, sometimes more, and I'm going to be running Boston again for the third time coming April.
A couple things that stick out to me is, it's funny how when you start running, and it sounds that it's kind of a similar thing that happened to me that happened to you. You don't ever set out to run an ultra, a Boston Marathon. You started just to change up your exercise. Like for me, it was a way to sort of rehabilitate myself from an MS attack. And for me, the initial goal was being able to run 5K. And now if I run anything less than 5K, I feel like a complete loser, for lack of a better way of putting it. But then it just sort of incrementally increases. You go from, you get to the point where you can, run 5K, and then all of a sudden you think, well, okay, I'll do 10. And then somehow you run your first half marathon. Now, my marathon, I'm about a half an hour longer than you to run a half marathon. I can't even imagine running under, if I could run an hour 45, I'd be thrilled, let alone an hour and 28 minutes. My best half marathon right now has been just under 2 hours. So, and I think I'm 10 years older than you, so I think at 39 years old, the odds of me being able to get down that quick are probably, at this point in the game, but it doesn't matter. I mean, that, one thing you said was about the community, and I don't think that, for me, it's just getting out there, and, you mentioned it's a lot of it's by yourself, so it's more of a competition with you internally than it is externally. If we were to stand side by side, you look like a runner, I don't. I've got about 75 pounds on you, and I don't know. How tall are you?
5'7", depending on the shoes.
Okay, so yeah, I've got about 5 inches in height on you. We're just very different builds, right? But again, that's not the point. Anyone can do it, and anyone can take it up. So, next thing I want to ask you about is you've got a really interesting job. So, can you just describe what it is that you do?
Yeah, just recently I took upon the position of community manager / brand ambassador at Sport Check here at the West Edmonton Mall. And what I do is I get to reach out to the community. I get to talk to people about what inspires them, what motivates them. Yesterday I decided to go check out November Project and lend them my support through social media, through everything, 'cause that's the free fitness movement. Again, just people being active and having fun with it. So in a nutshell, that's what I do. I get to talk about what my passions are and hear other people's passions as well. And it's a lot of fun. This is what I feel I want to do for a long, long time to come.
So that must be cool. So you get to, so no day would be the same, right? Obviously you got to deal with yahoos like me who are looking for money. You got to deal with yahoos like me who want to have you on a podcast. But great things like going to the November Project yesterday morning, and you get to see it from all perspectives. And it kind of sounds like your job's organic and you don't even know, like the last time we spoke, you didn't even really know fully what it was yet, and nor did the people who hired you to do it. So like long term, what do you see?
Long term, well, right now it's still, as you called it, it's organic. I can, it adapts. Everybody's changing. Everybody has different fitness focuses. So I guess have to adapt to everybody's needs. Mainly long term, I just want to see a strong community of people that love to come together and go for a run, go for that weightlifting session, break down your PRs. Your personal bests are, just new records to break is what they are. and I want to help people connect is the main thing. I want to be able to connect people so that they can achieve their fitness goals. There are a lot of great people, great fitness ambassadors in Edmonton, and I want people to know what's accessible to them, how easily accessible it is for them to get fit and live long and healthy lives.
Now, one of the things that Andre did do for the really long run is on his media board at the store in West Edmonton Mall. He put a picture up for last year from the really long run, and it's a picture that I think it's hilarious. I really think it's funny because the picture that's up there is of me. I'm about 65 kilometers into the run, give or take, and I'm wearing a Bubba Gump shrimp hat. Somebody got me the Forrest Gump hat because they thought it would be really funny, which, again, I got this pair of pink shades on because I didn't bring any shades that day. I don't know what I was thinking. So there's someone's that just, and I have a towel wrapped around my neck because they were putting towels in ice water to try and cool me down because I was really struggling at that point. So anyway, he put it up on the community board there, and he tweeted a picture of it. And I think it was my sister asked me, he's like, Sean, do you mind having the picture? And I thought, you know what? I think it's funny. And if it gets people asking questions, then it's the perfect one to have up, I think. Anyway, so I wanted to ask you, I forgot to mention this when you were telling your story about the running, but you were talking about calorie in and calorie out. One of the tips that you gave me a couple of weeks ago when we first met is you had mentioned that you had played around with a few apps on your phone, like calorie counters. And because I have to cut weight because of my build and stuff, I have to cut weight between now and April, or not April, May. Like I'm about 225 right now. I want to get down to about 210, 215 because that's, if I can get lower, awesome. So I downloaded one of those apps, and it's the coolest thing because and what I found is it makes you aware of what you're eating because you said that, like you're not aware, like if you go to, you go to a Subway or something and you have a foot-long sub, you don't realize that could be potentially half or more of your daily calorie intake in one sandwich. And if you did that at lunch, and let's say you had bacon and eggs and pancakes for breakfast, and then you have a steak dinner and then ice cream before bed, you could be 2,000 or 3,000 calories that day over what your ideal calorie intake could be, and you wouldn't be necessarily conscious of it because it was just part of your day. So can you maybe just talk about how that came about, how you used it, and how you found it helped? Because you mentioned some stuff when we were walking over here to sit down, and I just think it would be helpful to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing that I wanted to do was educate myself in terms of what is proper eating. And through that, I started exploring a lot of fitness apps and found one that suited me because it was easy to use. A lot of foods were already inputted, and I can see how many calories I'm supposed to take in. You put in your weight, your height, and based off that, it's what your recommended daily intake is. And it's a goal that is clear, it's concise, and you don't want to get necessarily past it depending on what your goal is. So with that, I was able to, I had a day where I decided just eat what I normally do, which was the biggest eye-opener, and inputted everything in without looking necessarily at the calories only until the end of the day, and realizing like, wow, this is a lot. I'm way over, especially if I did want to lose weight. This isn't the way to do it. So next day, decided let's properly portion out. Let's look into it a little bit more, and again, plate of spaghetti, it's not supposed to fill the whole plate. It's supposed to fill just about a quarter of the plate for the calorie intake when it comes to that. And it's tough. I'm sure if you've been doing it for a little bit, it must be, you can't eat the whole plate. And sometimes I do. I still have the big appetite where I could eat the whole pizza if I wanted to. But you just know what your fitness goals are and what's more important to you. Do you want to achieve what you set out to, or do you, I guess, want to live a shorter lifespan is what it comes down to in the end. And that's the biggest key, is educating yourself, number one, and realizing that what you are supposed to take in and how many calories are in the Subway sandwich, for example, or just in your normal going out to a restaurant or what you cook at home. It doesn't have to be filling up the plate. It just has to fill you up, and that's all you need.
No, and I think that, like what I found, because I started using it, I started using the app a week ago. So I'm into my second week now. So this is into my second week. And I had to go to, and I was perfect the whole week until I had a business trip. And poor me, I had to go to San Diego for the weekend for a conference. And I was, luckily enough, I had a kitchenette in my hotel room. So there was a Safeway, like honestly 2 blocks away. I went there, bought some chicken, bought just so I could eat normally. The worst part was travel days, because airports, it's really, really hard. I was actually not too bad getting there, because I just went and bought some like cereal bar, granola bar type things to get me down there on the way back. I had a bad day there where I was over. And you have the odd ones where you're over, but the nice thing is I'm not over by a lot. It's and then once you factor in exercise and stuff, am I really over? Right? So, yeah, I would just say that one of the recommendations that Andre gave me that I'm using is, if, look it up on your phone, whether you're using an Android or iOS or whatever, and they're pretty helpful. Now, the last thing I want to talk to you about, we touched on it the first time we met, and I'm going to push you on it again. Now, you're running the Boston. I think you said it was 2 weeks before my run. Yeah. Well, no, that's about a month before. It's about a month before the run. Okay. So, are you still thinking you might run a little bit with me on the 14th of May?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a run, it's a good cause, and that's what I want to do. I want to bring our running community together, the fitness community together, and it's a great cause to get behind, along with 85 kilometers to traverse, which will be a lot of fun. Absolutely.
Okay, he said it was going to be a lot of fun. I'll ask him at the end. Do you have anything else you want to add before we sign off?
Absolutely. The main thing to know when it comes to losing weight, when it comes to fitness, is that it's all baby steps. It's not going to be an immediate transformation. You have to look at the small picture and then take a step back after a while, look at the big picture. That's where you're going to notice the big change after a little bit of time has gone by. Just like with my running now, I mean, I'm running a marathon now at 2 hours and 50 minutes. I want to get faster. It's going to be incremental. It's not going to be magically at 2 hours and 30 minutes. I have to work hard at it. I have to, put my head down, dig deep, and put in the effort to shave off those few seconds every kilometer to get faster. Same thing with losing weight. It's the bit by bit. But like I said, after a little bit of time, step back, you'll see where you came from.
Actually, I'm going to add to that, because it's just interesting you mentioned that. Like, one thing when you're starting off on any kind of exercise plan is you have to take the scale with a grain of salt, depending on your body type. I mean, again, because you and I, Andre and I, are very different body types. I'm guessing you're probably an ecto and I'm an endo, so we're on the opposite ends of the spectrum. I gain weight and I add muscle very quickly, so I lose weight very slowly when I'm exercising. But a guy came up to me on the track today, a guy I see every day. I was at the track in St. Albert, and I see this guy every day. He came up to me, and we just say hi in passing. He goes, "You know what? You've really trimmed down." Well, he's been watching me for the last 2 years, like since I started this whole craziness till now. But in reality, there's only about 18 pounds of difference on the scale. But what he was talking about was the composition of my body's changed. And because I've gained a lot of muscle, which weighs a lot more than fat, and I've lost a lot of the fat. I have more fat to lose, but that's something important to be aware of. If you're only losing a pound a week like you were to start, that's not the end of the world, because behind the scenes, your body's really changing. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And, yeah, I agree.
So anyways, I just want to say, Andre, thank you very much for taking the time. If you can picture this out there in podcast land, we were sitting in phase 1 of West Edmonton Mall on the 2nd floor, overlooking the stage, just on some leather furniture. So that's the setting. Thanks again for doing this, and I look forward to running with you in May. Now, keep in mind, it's actually good that you have to run the Boston less than a month before. It'll slow you down a little bit. Otherwise, I might attach a tow rope to you. Okay. Thanks, bud.
So that was my conversation with Andre. Thanks again, Andre, for doing that. It's a great story, and I think it's one that I'm happy that you shared with the listeners of this podcast. If anybody wants to follow Andre on Twitter with regards to his job he was talking about with Sport Check, you can follow him at the Sport Check West Ed Twitter account, and you can find him at SC West Ed on Twitter. So that's at SCWESTED on Twitter. And Andre, honestly, is really great on Twitter. If you interact with the account, he generally will interact back with you. That's actually how we met. Was like I said, I tweeted it at him. So now the next podcast, I may get one out in April. We have an event for the run coming up on the 21st, which I believe is a Thursday evening. It's supposed to be at the Brown Social Hall in West Henday in Edmonton. So I may record some audio that night. I am planning on doing a podcast during the day while we're running on May 14th and getting audio throughout the day. So the next podcast may be in April. It may wait till after I finish the run in May. It just all depends on time. If you're interested in being a guest on the podcast, please send me an email at Sean, SEAN, at ownmultiplesclerosis.com. You can also tweet at me at ownms.com1, so that's OWNMSDOTCOM, and then the number 1 on Twitter. You can find me there. I'm actually on Instagram now, so that's I believe it's ownms. So if you want to be involved at all with the podcast, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to have you. And if you don't live in Edmonton, it does not matter. A lot of the interviews I've actually done via FaceTime, Skype. So wherever you are in the world, and if you want to be a guest and talk about your experience and your journey with multiple sclerosis, I'd love to hear from you. I look at the stats after every episode, and there are people in the United States, there are people in Europe, there are people all over the place that listen to this, and thank you for doing so. It's been great it's been a great thing for me as well. So I hope it helps you, and it's been good for me. If you're at all interested in the Really Long Run to End MS, you can find information at www.reallylongruntoendms.ca. You can also find information on my blog at ownmultiplesclerosis.com. So thanks for listening, and like I said, there may be a podcast in April, but there will definitely be one after the run in May, and I'll talk to you soon.